Welcome to the Arkansas Weather Blog here at KATV.com. We are very happy to have joining us right now meteorologist JoeBastardi, weatherbell.com. Also, you might want to check out Joe. He will be on Weather Geeks on Sunday. Is that right?
Yeah, this weekend I'll be on Weather Geeks again, and I was on this past week. I really had a great time over there in Atlanta with the folks at the Weather Show. Of course, every once in a while, little spats go on where I make some comments, but but back and forth. There's natural rivalry, and that I think competition across, of course, Todd, increases competency among people who are trying to excel. So, it's a pretty cool thing.
It's a great idea to exchange ideas and to challenge each other.
I'm all for that. I'm not for this this whole thing where you're shutting down debate, but I'm all for exchanging ideas. Because if you have a better idea than me, I'm going to try to make it mine. And if you don't, then I know that I'm strong enough with mine. So, but anyway, I digress.
All right. I look for that on the Weather Channel coming up. But what everybody here in Arkansas wants to know, first of all, I use your forecasts for long range, for seasonal forecasts on the air here at Channel 7 because I think that you do a great job with that. And it's much easier to read and understand, I think, than other forecasts that are put out there. And last year here in Arkansas, you did very well with the snowfall. You're a little too cold with your temperatures, I think.
Well, that thaw that hit it wound up below normal,
right.
But the center of the cold was further east, and that's the second year in a row where it turned out further east. But I think the big message of the last three winters was that this significant and major cold was returning to the United States after that winter of 11-12, where people were saying, aha, no more winters anymore. And when you're looking at something and in the vast, infinite majesty of the atmosphere, trying to nail it down to the exact place it's going to get the worst winter weather, that gets pretty hard to do. Or you get storms past just to the south, of course, in Arkansas. One or two storms make a big deal between a winter below normal snow and above normal snowfall, for instance. So I was pleased with the forecast overall. The guys that I'm working with, Tommy Downs and, of course, the great Joe DeLeo, who is a little bit older than me, and I think he was around when Moses was around, but he has that kind of wisdom. I've got a Weather Bell. We've got a merry band of very committed people. And, from the management right through Dr. Ryan Maui, of course. So it gives us an advantage, that type of thing. And all we do is the weather. And it's always been that way with me, contrary to what people might think. It's always been about the weather with me. So this year, of course, we've got a really interesting winter coming up.
Yeah, and let's get into it. The winter of 2015, 2016, you are calling for, in this portion of the country, snowfall around 150 to maybe as high as 200% of average in this region. And temperatures around 3 degrees below average for a seasonal averge, average. And, last winter, everybody was wondering, December and then into January, what winter? There's nothing going on. And then all of a sudden, bam, it hit in February, and it hit hard.
It hit hard. Well, we got out of the box quick in November. Remember?
That's right. We had November snow here.
Yeah, and we went back and forth, and we turned cold right after Christmas for a couple weeks into January, and then it backed off again. And it was around the time of Deflategate that everything just went south, so to speak. It just flipped around with that. But you could see that coming fairly obviously. It was like the warm-up of Christmas of 2013. You could see what was going to happen in January. As far as we were concerned, we knew how. What really set it off last year was when the Southern Oscillation Index crashed. That's when I knew our forecast was going to turn out just fine, because when that happened, I knew that the reactions were going to take place in the atmosphere. We're going to bring the trough and lock the trough into the eastern part of the United States for February. Coming to this year, there are a lot of different things going on. There's been a lot of talk of it being like the 97, 98 El Nino, and certainly in some aspects it is. If I look at El Nino, like let's say you have a family of 12 kids. Well, they all come from the same parents, but they're all different kids. One may play the violin, another guy may be a baseball player, another one, it turns out to be a wrestler or something like that. So you get different types of El Ninos, and they will react differently given the entire global pattern around them. And this has a lot of things very, very different from 97, 98 as far as that winter goes. It make me think that it's going to be a stormier but colder version of 97, 98. 97, 98 was a very stormy winter, but it was a very warm winter too across much of the United States.
You're looking at the El Nino and also the temperatures in the Eastern Pacific being above the anomalies are above average anomalies. So you're saying that's going to set the ridge is going to set up in the western portions of Canada.
Yeah, that's crucial.
That's crucial in punching the cold air down into the lower 48. And so you get in cold air intrusions, and then with the subtropical jet being active, this is going to be a fun winter.
Yeah, it should be a very active winter too. Normally in El Nino winters, December is a throwaway month. That's the month that's most likely to be warm of the three, and February is most likely to be the coldest of the month. And as a matter of fact, one thing we've been stressing is we believe the January through March part of winter will be very harsh across much of the United States, south of, let's say, if you took Interstate 80, for those of you who know where Interstate 80 runs, up across the north. And we've also introduced something called the Winter Weather Index, which simply is a computation of temperatures relative to normal and snowfall relative to normal to come up with some type of an idea of how bad or how nasty it'd be. Like, for instance, in the categories that we've developed, anything that's greater than 16 is severe, crippling type winter. Boston, for instance, in the month of February last year, scored a 24 on that. But the other months it wasn't as bad, so they wound up with about a 12 overall. But of course, it was a very bad winter in New England. Here in Little Rock, we're between 6 and 8 on that, which means for Arkansas, it looks to be like it's going to be a pretty bad winter, and latest in the series of winter. Now, I will tell you this: I am very bullish that this is going to turn around, where we're going to have a series of winters across the United States where we're going to really relax this as soon as the Pacific flips, and it will flip. We saw this happen in the late 1950s, the same thing you're seeing going on in the Pacific now. 1919, 1920, similar type of situation. And we watch what happens after that, and generally you'll go through a period where everybody's going, oh, well, that's it. There's not going to be any snow anymore. So that may happen, if not next winter, then the following 2 or 3 winters.
All right. And so here in Little Rock, we average about 3.5 inches of snow a year, which I think you blink your eyes in Pennsylvania and it falls when you open them up again.
Yeah.
But 3.5 inches to set. I mean, that's still a pretty good seasonal snow for Arkansas.
Well, I'll tell you what. Now the problem in Little Rock is see, when we do a forecast like this, what we don't want to do is have it turn out to be the opposite sign. Like, if, for instance, suppose you got 4 times the normal snowfall, you have a 15-inch snowfall year. I'm not going to be upset about that at all, right? Because we have if you're predicting more than normal, then when you score something, if it gets even greater than that, it's not as bad an error as if you had it, forecasted it was below normal. So let's say there's 15 inches of snow in Little Rock, people will still get the idea, well, this guy thought there was going to be a bigger winter. The problem you have here is, of course, if you get 1 or 2 storms that are 6, 8 inches of snow, you're looking at 4 times the normal amount of snowfall. And this is the kind of year where it's kind of funny. I was down Lake Conroe. I don't know if you've ever been to Lake Conroe, Texas. Mm-hmm. I was eating dinner at a place called Fajita Jack's right on the lake, and I said to the waitress, I said, "Hey, I'm coming back here next year. Make sure you get me pictures of it snowing." She goes, "It doesn't snow down here." I said, "Well, it's going to snow this winter. You watch. I want to see pictures." Because the type of winter it is, 72, 73, 63, 64, for instance, it snowed across southeast Texas quite a bit in those winters, and it snowed all the way to Atlanta. It snowed in Little Rock. So we have a southern winter that will try to amplify itself a little bit further north and east. And certainly the Southern Rockies, I think, are going to be in good shape for skiing. I'm not optimistic at all about the Pacific Northwest and on into British Columbia this particular winter.
All right, almost out of time here, and just want to touch base with you. The other thing that we deal with a lot here in Arkansas in the fall, it's our secondary severe weather season.
Yeah.
Quick thoughts about that?
Well, that's going to be interesting to watch in that the water in the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico is still very, very warm. As you know, I'm still I just can't believe we're going to get out of this hurricane season for the United States coastline without some kind of late season threat, given the amount of how warm the water is, and the fact that there's so many other things going on that are sort of negating the El Nino as far as the mean barometric pressures go in the Atlantic. But that's a very interesting phenomenon, of course, and a lot of times if you can keep it warm into October, and while I do think October is going to turn quite a bit cooler mid and late month, I think that the Gulf is going to be insulated from a lot of the cooling. That's the real problem. And what happens, folks, is the Gulf being very, very warm. It's almost opposite of what you see in April and May, where the Gulf is still cooler relative to land. So you need the sun to come out, heat things up. If the Gulf's very warm, you'll see a lot of inflow in off the Gulf of Mexico, and you're strengthening the systems in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. So off the thunderstorms go, and unfortunately, a lot of these come in at night. A lot of the late season, second season tornado outbreaks occur at night, which is hideous because people are asleep. So we're concerned about that. What could really keep that down, though, is if you got some kind of storm rolling around the Gulf of Mexico for 3, 4, 5 days, really cooling the water, and then making it so that the dew points from an influx of warm, moist air in November are not that high. We're looking for a very stormy season in the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, I told my tropical clients, I said, you know what? I may be extending our tropical site right into winter, not because there's going to be a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico in the winter, but because there might be so much storminess going on. And what I do for a living with the energy companies and things like that, if you're going to have disruption in the Gulf of Mexico, they have to know about it. So it doesn't matter if it has a name on it or not. So that's a very good point. And I think what we got to look for again is watch those Gulf of Mexico temperatures. And that has a lot to do with it, because as soon as that jet starts to strengthen, it looks like it's going to want to strengthen over the northeast corner of the country and through the southern part of the United States first. At least that's what I'm looking at in the modeling. That could lead to some interesting problems.
So to sum up, you think that unless there's some upwelling in the Gulf, which would cool those temperatures with a big storm, that it will provide plentiful moisture. You get these storms rolling through it. It could be an active secondary severe weather season here.
The way you would also, you could take care of that, get that out of there, is if we have a November like last year where the cold just started sweeping and updating. And that's why we watch the typhoons so much. We watch to see if they're going to recurve, because if they recurve, they set up a certain pattern. That Typhoon Nuri last year, late in October, set up the November cold outbreak.
Yeah,
and we had
I remember that.
Days. Yeah, it was an interesting rule. I'm sort of happy about that. People are picking up on that particular rule, because that was taught to me 30 years ago by a great meteorologist named Norm Macdonald. He's not the comedian. He was a meteorologist. They came out in New England. I had the privilege of working with him at AccuWeather. He was my hero when I was a kid. I used to watch him when I was in kindergarten. He's on TV, right? My dad always said he was a great meteorologist. So what happened was he explained that to me, and I started looking at it. And it was originally developed by World War II forecasters, and then Caltech, MIT researched it a little bit more. And now people are picking up on it. So it's something to be watching for. So, folks, if Todd happens to mention a typhoon in the Western Pacific one night, don't get upset at him. The typhoon's not going to hit Little Rock, but indirectly it might be giving you a hint at what the weather may be doing in Arkansas and the lower Mississippi Valley.
6 to 10 days.
Sure.
Yeah, I've learned from you too, Joe. 6 to 10 days after that recurvature.
I learned from everybody. There's so many great people out there, and there's so much knowledge. You got an infinite, majestic system. You're never going to be able to learn about it all. So everybody picks up. It's kind of weird, because when I was younger, I used to say, I don't believe that. Now I go the exact opposite. I see someone that has a point, I'm saying, I'm going to make that mine. And the more I could get, I'm sort of sneaky about that stuff.
All right, Joe. Thank you so much for giving us your expertise. That's Joe Bastardi. Check out his blog and the website, weatherbell.com. It is subscription-based, but if you know the weather geek in your life, it's a great present. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, Todd.
Yes.
Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Amen. Thank you so much, Joe. Love that.